I'm Jane Vaughan, Director of Education from the National Autistic Society.
And I'm Glenys Jones from the Autism Centre for Education and Research at the University of Birmingham.
Glenys, in all the research that you do, I know you've visited a lot of schools and you've looked at a whole range of educational interventions. There's so much out there, I think it can be quite confusing for parents. What advice would you give parents when they're looking for a suitable school for their child who's on the autism spectrum?
Well, the first thing I would say to them is that every child is different in terms of the range of options they have. So it's important for them to look at every type of school within their catchment area and not to go by the label alone. Also to say to them that children are very different and have different needs, and therefore different placements will suit different children. So I would suggest they visited all the schools and had a mental checklist in terms of what they needed to look for and the questions they asked. I think they have to consider what they feel their child's main needs are, and to look at the school and think whether they see children who are similar to their son or daughter. I would suggest they ask the head to look at the class that their child would join, so they get a sense of what the peer group's like and also what's being offered to the child. And I usually suggest that they draw up a balance sheet which would then give them the positives about the school, but also any possible disadvantages. And then when they've looked at all the schools, all the possible schools, they can consider that list and think then whether they can, if they choose one of the schools, whether they can turn some of the disadvantages into positives, or at least ask the head whether they can. If a parent was interested in mainstream school, they're often concerned that the staff may not have any knowledge of autism. But in my experience, some staff can learn very quickly, particularly if they're open to talking to the parents about the child and about their particular profile and needs and issues. So I wouldn't say that a school that has no knowledge of autism is out of the question.
There's lots of debate at the moment around teaching assistants and whether they're effective or not in the classroom. What tips would you give to teachers to make sure that the teaching assistants are effective in their support of children with autism?
Okay. Well, I think the first crucial thing is that both the teacher and the TA need to be clear about their separate roles and responsibilities, and there's been some discussion about that before the child ever enters the classroom. Secondly, that the class teacher needs to take responsibility for that child and not put all the work onto the TA. We also need to think about giving the TAs a break from being in charge of the child, and parents sometimes worry when they have a good TA if it's suggested that they are shared. My feeling is that children get different things from different personalities, different skill sets, and if a TA is solely responsible and then leaves the school or is ill, the child is left high and dry without anyone who knows them well. I have come across a school where the TAs became very skilled in working with children with autism, and the head then gave them a special responsibility in getting involved in training staff who are new to autism. So I think it's important to recognise the strengths and qualities of TAs and to reward them, if not financially, but in recognition of their enhanced skills, etc. I think TAs haven't got to feel they're always very close to the child and prompting that they should distance themselves and also work with other children in the class, because there are many children with autism who don't want a person attached to them, or certainly not visibly attached to them, and actually are not comfortable with the physical presence of another person. So that's important. I think the other thing I would say is that in some authorities, the pupil with autism Asperger's syndrome has been involved in the selection process and the interview process, so that if they need a TA, then they're part of the interview panel and they've generated their own questions, one of which was, what television programmes do you enjoy, and the other was, if you weren't coming for interview, what would you be wearing today?
Glenys, thank you very much indeed. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
It's a pleasure, Jane. Thank you.